our top story this hour, Israel says it has secured its border with Gaza 3 days after Hamas broke through the barrier to launch a murderous assault that has left more than 900 people dead. The Israeli army says no Hamas militants have crossed in the past day, but the bodies of 15 have been recovered. Israeli airstrikes on the Gaza Strip have continued overnight, and the Air Force said 200 targets were hit. Israel says it's mounting a total siege to cut off food, water and fuel supplies to Gaza. Around 770 Palestinians have been killed in the airstrikes so far, but Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the airstrikes on Gaza have only just started. Arise News chief correspondent John Cookson has the story.
Israel's relentless bombing of Gaza continues. This was once the Babel building in Gaza City. Government officials in Gaza confirmed the deaths and names of 7 Palestinian journalists who've been killed since Hamas's violent incursion and Israel's retaliatory airstrikes on the Gaza Strip. Aid agencies are calling for a humanitarian corridor for Palestinians in Gaza. At least 100,000 have been displaced in the last 4 days. Meanwhile, Israel's severing of power, food and fuel to the enclave is beginning to bite. The expected Israeli ground offensive hasn't even started yet, but these aerial images show devastation in Gaza on an apocalyptic scale. This isn't, of course, a disaster movie, it's real, and the result of days of rocket attacks by Israel. Palestinians fear the city of Gaza may never be rebuilt. The Israeli Defense Force says it's now secured the border between Gaza and Israeli-held territory breached on Saturday. 1,500 Hamas militants' bodies have been recovered. Just how dangerous an operation is seen in this footage from Kibbutz Niram. These border police are extracting wounded soldiers under heavy fire from Hamas militants. This latest round of violence between Israel and Hamas is even more devastating through the wide circulation on social media of images from the assault. This just released dashcam footage of Hamas militants firing at a vehicle fleeing the Supernova music festival near Kibbutz Reem in the Negev desert. Up to 250 young Israeli and foreign partygoers were gunned down by Hamas militants at the festival after they stormed Israel on motorbikes, pickup trucks, speedboats and motorized gliders.
Hamas will understand that by attacking us, they've made a mistake of historic proportions. We will exact a price that will be remembered by them and Israel's other enemies for decades to come. The savage attacks that Hamas perpetrated against innocent Israelis are mind-boggling, slaughtering families in their homes, massacring hundreds of young people at an outdoor festival, kidnapping scores of women, children, and elderly, even Holocaust survivors. Hamas terrorists bound, burned, and executed children. They are savages.
Normally busy streets like this one in Tel Aviv are eerily quiet today. The Israeli government has advised its citizens to make sure they know where their nearest shelter is and to stock up with food and water to last 72 hours. John Cookson, Arise News, Tel Aviv.
And let's join John Cookson live from Tel Aviv for more on this developing story. John, I want to say thank you very much for joining us. Tel Aviv, what's the current situation in Tel Aviv as we speak?
Hi guys, good to see you. I arrived early this morning and I've been to Israel many times and also the occupied territories. But, this is different. It just feels different. This is a nation, I'm talking about Israel now, this is a nation in shock. And I keep monitoring social media and I've used some images from the attack by Hamas in that news package, but I couldn't use some of the images that are on social media of of Israelis being shot in cold blood and also tortured by Hamas. And I was talking to an Israeli lady earlier this morning, and we were discussing it, and I said this was animalistic behavior, and she said, don't call them animals, because that's just disrespectful to animals. They're far worse than that. And, Israel just is in complete shock about what's happened. It's been described as Israel's 9/11. The scale of it and the brutality of it by Hamas militants. And of course, it's not over yet. Many hostages being held, 100, 150 somewhere in Gaza. And Netanyahu promising revenge in that clip that you showed. And really, people here are just braced for what's going to happen next. Tel Aviv is desperately quiet. I was in a grocer's shop earlier, and I was talking to the owner. I said, "Is it normally like this?" Knowing that it wasn't, he said, "No, of course not, because we're a country at war, and it really does feel like that. Shops are closed that would normally be open. Hotels are closed, and I have to say there are a large number of foreign nationals wandering around because they can't get out. The airport is a disaster zone. I was able to fly in, but people are fighting to get on planes to get out, and there's very few aircraft leaving Tel Aviv for Europe or indeed anywhere. So it's a very difficult situation, a very tense situation, and as I say, Israel is stunned still by what began on Saturday morning.
And of course, John, we do appreciate your bravery in getting us to the center of the story, despite all of the concerns at the moment. Now, the Israelis say they have secured the border with Gaza. Do Israelis feel any more secure given the mood that you're currently seeing on the ground?
Not at all. No. Yes, Hamas broke out of 8 or 9 sections of fence around another security apparatus in Gaza, and the Israelis may have sealed those off. But Israelis will say, well, we were attacked from the sea and the air. They used paragliders. They stormed in from the sea. How do we know that that's not going to happen again? So although the Israeli government would want to reassure the people here, they're not reassured, I would say, and they're fearful, of course, as to what is to come. They know the onslaught by the Israelis is going to be huge in the coming days. So we're not sure when, but it has to be soon. And Hamas knows this is happening, so they're planning something. And who knows what other forces outside of Israel, like Hezbollah in Lebanon, how they're going to react to an Israeli ground assault on Gaza. So no, Israelis, I would say, generally speaking, are not reassured that at least things have stabilized around Gaza for the present time. And I'm even hearing from other media that there are odd Hamas militants roaming the countryside down in, not far from here in the south of Israel. And the mopping up operation perhaps is not as complete as the Israeli government would like to suggest.
All right, we know that Hamas has actually spoken about taking hostages at the moment and also even executing hostages. But any word on these hostages and maybe their possible release?
Nothing at all, and this is also a great concern for the families. I mean, 100, 150 Israelis, also foreign nationals, maybe some Americans. We don't know how many foreign nationals are being held, including one newborn baby. Every element of this story is so shocking to think that a newborn is being held, perhaps not with its mother or its father, in some bunker in Gaza City under the control of Hamas militants. It's just horrific. And there's also an 86-year-old grandmother and she's also being held hostage. What's her fate? Are they being fed? Are they being tortured? Just no one knows. President Biden is due to speak later today, so maybe we'll hear more from US sources a little bit later.
Absolutely. And I was about to speak to that. What are our expectations? Of course, we've already seen the show of solidarity from the US, the UK, a number of other Western nations. What is the position that we're expecting from them?
Well, right from the start, the US has promised rock-solid support, and off the coast of Israel, I don't know for sure, but I'm reasonably certain that there's a very large US aircraft carrier and 5 or 6 other warships belonging to the United States. These will not take part in supplying aircraft, perhaps, to an invasion of Gaza, but what they will do is they have sophisticated radar and intelligence gathering systems on board, and they will be fed in real time to the Israelis. And it may well be that the American Navy may take out incoming rockets from perhaps from Lebanon if Hezbollah decides to take part. But President Biden's message, I'm sure tonight, will be something along the lines of the hostages must be freed, especially as the belief is that there are American hostages. But that could take a long time. Some hostages on both sides, Palestinians in jail, and those held by the Palestinians have taken years to release in some cases. So there's some hard bargaining going to happen, I'm sure, on that situation.
All right, I want to say many thanks to you, John Cookson, for your time here on Newsday. Please be safe.